It's weekly download time. It's weekly download time. Now it's time for the weekly download. Download time. It's weekly download time. And now we're going to learn some stuff. Cause it's download time. It's weekly download time. It's time for the weekly download. Download time. It's weekly download time. And now we're going to learn some stuff. Oh yeah. Okay, we're back. It's part of our weekly download marathon. We're doing another weekly download because I missed last week because I was in Costa Rica with no internet. But today we're going to talk about adding some movement to your sounds because movement makes things a lot more interesting. So, one of my pet peeves about electronic music, especially amateur electronic music, is that you hear the exact same fucking sound again and again and again and again in the song, and it becomes really, really repetitive, which is cool. Is sometimes, like if you're making techno music, and you want that kind of hypnotic repeating sort of an effect, it can be good. But other times, you kind of don't want I don't know. It's just other times I think that sound can benefit from a lot of movement. Oh yeah, I guess this is the part where I put the weekly download into the chat. So www.theweeklydownload.com. So yeah, if you want to get all of the weekly downloads, and there are quite a few now, if you want to get all the weekly downloads, it is only $5 per week, and you get tons and tons and tons. Here, can you close the door, please, Jacob? So yes, and you get all the weekly downloads, and there's a great many, and yeah, you can learn lots of things and download lots of sounds and stuff. Okay, so today we're talking about movement. It's really nice to have some movement in your sounds, especially if you're going to have the same sound recur many, many times in your song. It's nice to have a little bit of movement in the sound. So I'm going to show you some simple ways to add movement, and then we're going to get some more complicated ways to add movement. So I'm going to get a drum loop first. Okay, so let's just get a nice simple drum loop. Yeah, that was a cool one.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a really nice drum loop. Okay, so we got this drum loop, right? So let's say, right, that this here is going to be the dropperoo on this track. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get just like a kick and a snare as well. Yeah, it's a nice basic kick drum. So it's going to go boom, cack, boom, cack. Also, you'll notice here, if I zoom in, look at this. See? Ableton is fading the beginning off of my kick drum. If you go to show fades, you'll see Ableton is automatically putting a fade on the beginning of everything. That can be really annoying. So you can turn that off in the preferences. If you go down here to record warp launch, you can turn create fades on clip edges off, and you want to have that off every time you're editing percussion so you do not get the little fade at the beginning. Okay, so just putting a bunch of these in there. Okay, so we got a bunch of kicks, and now I'm going to get a snare. Oh, that's a nice snare. Okay, so I'm going to get a snare here, and you'll see if you zoom in and go to show fades, because I had that thing off, it avoided putting a fade on the beginning, which is what we want, because we don't want to fade our drums unless we mean to fade our drums. Okay, so now we have a drum loop and a kick and a snare happening, right? And when I play them all together, you will hear them all together. Oh, I'm gonna put a limiter on the master just so that we don't clip and it doesn't distort for those of you listening. right? This is cool, but it's very static, right? So I want to make this into like a nice kind of build up into a drop, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these together and I'm going to group them. And now we're going to call this group drums because it is a group of drums. And I want to make this drum start far away and then come in and be full on. So I'm going to take an EQ and I'm going to put the EQ on it. And I'm going to turn off everything except for a high pass and a low pass. And then I'm going to put these into a group. And I'm going to macro map the frequency of the high pass filter as well as the low pass filter. And I'm going to invert one of them by right clicking and going to invert range. And now you'll see when the parameter is at 0, the drums are going to be wide open, and as the parameter comes up, it's going to high and low pass it at the same time. And it has an effect where it kind of seems like it's going far away. I also sometimes like to invert these both so that the off state is all the way up. So I'm going to macro that to the power button too. And I want the power button to be 127 minimum and then maximum 126. And what that's going to do is when this parameter is all the way at 127, there is going to be no EQing. And then as I move it down, it's going to turn on the high and low pass filters, and they're going to basically fade the sound out. Right, until you get nothing about here. Okay, so that's going to create a kind of natural far away effect because, like, if you're psychoacoustically, right, you only really get super high end and super low end from a sound if it's close. So when you take the top and the bottom off of a sound. Okay, why is my dock doing that? Okay, there we go. The high and the low will go away when a sound is far away. So it creates a kind of natural far away effect. Right? I like to turn the Q kind of pretty far down on these because it just sounds a little bit more natural. Maybe I'll turn the Q up a little bit on the bottom one. Right, you can do that with any EQ, and that'll give it a nice kind of far away effect. So I also sometimes, when I'm doing this, I will take a utility and make the utility go increasingly mono as the sound goes down. So I'd put the maximum I would want to be 100%, and then as you bring the knob down, it'll get more and more mono. Now I'm not sure if there is any here. Let's turn the utility all the way up and let's see if there's any stereo information in this. Yeah, there's a bit of stereo information. So sometimes it's nice to have it go from 200 at the bottom to 100, right? So it's like, so it's getting less and less mono. And then it comes in nice and loud when it comes in. So that's a really cool way to add movement. And if I just take this and make a nice little ramp like this. You can hear it slowly coming in. It feels like it's coming from far away and opening up. Right? It's a really nice way to kind of slowly fade in your sound in a kind of like elegant way. This sounds really good on most sounds. You can definitely overdo it, but this. And it sounds like the sound is slowly opening up and then pop, open, right? So that's like the kind of basic version of the faraway rack. This rack also sounds quite good if you put a reverb on it. And I'm going to macro map the wet dry on the reverb and then invert the wet dry. I'm going to click that and invert it so that as this parameter comes down, it'll be more reverby as well. And that is kind of increasing the far away effect. And then it goes to totally dry at the end. And I don't have to macro map the power button on the reverb because the reverb has a wet dry on it. And when it goes to 100% dry, it's 100% dry. So that's a really simple way to add movement to your tracks. Also, you know, let's get a loop of a riff here. Let's go to my Elgates library and go into longer samples. Let's go to riffs. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure if that's the right beep. No, it's probably. I think this one's approximately the right. Right? So that could sound really nice with a faraway rack on it, but also sometimes you don't always want it. Like, you can really overdo it with the faraway rack. Sometimes it's nice to just have a low pass that slowly opens up. So I'm going to put a filter on here, but instead of automating the filter, because when you're automating a filter, you often have to, like you can see here, when I move the value around, you'll see the value of the parameter, but it's hard to do that kind of accurately. And it's really easy. Like, let's say that I have this thing automated like this, and then later I'm like cutting or pasting something. You get these like funny jumps in the parameter that are kind of annoying, and it'll ruin the precision of your editing. So a lot of the time when I'm trying to automate a parameter and I want to just set a maximum and minimum on the automation, I'll just put it into a group and just macro one parameter, and then that way I can specify the maximum and minimum here. So I'll say take this from 150 at the bottom up, and then I will have it be all the way at the top. I'm gonna make it dry by going 127, 126, and then I know that I just have to make a nice little ramp here, like this, and then that ramp is going to slowly introduce my sound as the rest of it comes up. Oh, that's not quite warped properly. Okay, sorry, I'm just tidying up the warping on this clip here. Right, and I'm gonna loop this. But this can create a nice kind of opening up effect as well when the low pass comes. Right? But I think I want this low pass to go down to like 100, and then maybe I want to add a little bit of res to this. So I'm going to right click and put res to the same thing, and I'm going to max the res at 0 and then min the res at about there, and then you get that real juicy low pass effect. It also typically sounds better when you put it on one of these analog modeled low passes with maybe a bit of drive. I'm going to put the drive on there and have the drive be like that. So you see this is doing all those parameters at once. So that's a really kind of great way to add some movement to your tracks, a low pass filter. And people really underutilize low pass filters. Like, low pass filtering, people are like, oh, low pass, that's like the most basic shit ever. But it's so useful a low pass filter. And a lot of tracks, like if you have like really full on riffs, if you just have a section where a low pass comes on and then maybe some dub noises come in to fill out the top end, you have like a whole new section just by adding a low pass. Okay, so that's a really, really great way. That's a really, really great way to add some movement to your tracks, okay? But you can tell here that even though I've kind of simplified these things with just these macros, editing automation kind of sucks, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass, and it's really easy to end up with too much automation, and it's a pain in the ass to edit and everything. And sometimes it's nice to have some movement happening that maybe doesn't involve automation, right? So let's get a synth out. Okay, I'm gonna get analog. Let's see what key you're in. Boom. So what is that? That's F. Okay, so I'm going to put this into the key of F. Now I'm going to say F. I'll do an F minor pentatonic. Let's see. Right? So sometimes these, here, let's see. Here is the, where's the velocity? Envelope to velocity, there it is. I'll turn that off. So saw waves are great. Everybody loves saw waves. But a really plain saw wave can be a little bit kind of basic sounding, you know, like it's just, especially when they're really dry, it can sound like a little bit, I don't know, just not that cool, you know. So it's nice to kind of be able to thicken up your saw waves and make them have a bit more life, you know, because like basic, you know, like that whole blast of bass thing, it can sound really good, but without a bit of movement to the sound, the bass can sound a little basic, a little too simple, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, well, first I'll show you the effect that we're kind of going for with the auto filter, and then I'll show you a kind of better way to do it. So people usually think of low pass filters as only really good for cutting out the highs. And you'll notice I'm using one of those analog model filters types because they just sound a bit better. Like you hear that's juicy. Put it on clean. It doesn't have that liquidy analog sound that you get. Like the res goes higher to the point of... The MS-20 one is really good. Like you just get a juicier filter sound out of some of these more modeled ones. I'll stick with the MS-20 for now. Okay, so people typically think of low pass filters as just for making things sound like this. But a lot of the time, low pass filters can sound really good when you're using them just to boost the highs like this. You hear that way up in the like 10K plus? It's giving us that sizzle. So we're actually using a low pass filter to boost the highs. So that can sound really cool. Now check it out. Watch what happens when you turn this LFO on. I'm going to turn this LFO on and add a little bit of movement. And this is going to add some slow movement to the maximum value of this filter. You hear that moving around? That sounds really cool. But check it out. When you turn the phase up, this is going to make the left and right ear slightly out of phase on the LFO. And now you suddenly have this like moving high-pitched stereo image just from the low pass. But the problem is, when you bring it down too low, you lose the highs. Because like I want the movement to go all the way down and all the way up. Because you can see when it hits the mids, you get that yah, yah, yah. You kind of form it, the effect. See, that's with everything in phase. Now watch when I turn it up, it'll make the two ears out of phase. Right? That's really cool, but we're losing all of our highs, right? What I want is that same sort of an effect, but just with like a peak filter. I don't want a low pass and there's no peak filter option. Like I can put it on a band pass, right? And if I were to put that into a group and then put the band pass down here, now I have the dry signal and then the band pass signal. And they add together to create a kind of peak filter. Right? That sounds pretty cool. But you know, whatever. There's no peak filter option. All right? I want to make a peak filter version of that. So what I'm going to do is automate an EQ. And automating your EQs, this is one of the most underutilized things. And a lot of people, they're like, how do I sound like Skrillex? How do I sound like Skrillex? Automate your fucking EQs. To get those like crazy Skrillex growls, automating EQs is a big part of that sound. So check it out. I'm going to put this peak filter and then move it. Especially if I turn the scale up. So that's giving me the peak filter effect that I want, but there's no LFO. So how do you get an LFO to automate your EQ? Well, lucky for you, Max for Live has the answer. So if I search LFO in Max for Live, the Max MIDI effect, there's an LFO. There's also an audio effect LFO. At least Max audio effect, there should be an LFO. I might not have it. This might be a bad version of my library. Yeah, I'm gonna start moving over to 10 to do these tutorials, by the way, because I'm not using 9 to produce anymore. But there is a Max audio effect version of the LFO. But I'm gonna put this LFO on. So Max has an LFO. Whoa, okay. Strange. Let's see, okay, so yeah, we're in here. Uh-oh. Oh boy, okay. Configure the Max path in the preferences. Okay, where is Max applications? Max browse. Max, open. Good. Okay, that should work. Okay. Let's see, LFO, let's see if this will work. Oh, annoying. All right, guys, I might have to do this in 10 because I don't want to stop doing this. So I'm going to save this as and then open it in 10. Okay, so movement. So those of you who are on Ableton 9, you can do this in Live 9. You just have to have things configured, and it's actually kind of been a while since I've used Live 9 because I've been rocking 10 so hard. Okay, so let's open up 10, and then I will get this going in 10. But yeah, the Max LFO and everything is, oh, Ableton's updating itself. How annoying. Why are you updating yourself? Ah. Okay, so Max is now built into Live 10. And all the Max devices are way leaner. They run with a lot less stress. A lot less stress on your CPU. And they look like Ableton devices, and they behave a lot better. It's not as jumpy and stuff, but oh, it's being annoying. Live's doing an I haven't turned automatic updates off for Live 10 yet. So I gotta wait for it to finish that. Let's see, can I see show network monitor? Yeah, I should be able to see it downloading using Little Snitch. Little Snitch is a really cool Little Snitch is a really cool thing. So let's see. Adobe Desktop Service. Oh, I'm going to turn that off. Block. Yeah, okay, so that is still downloading. Bummer. Alright, well, shit. Okay. Yeah, see, Ableton Live Suite is downloading currently. Boo! Alright, let's see. This is probably going to take a little bit. Ah! Alright, I'll see if I can do it in here. That's why you always got to turn automatic. Oh my god, both my lives are updating themselves. Ha! Hilarious. Okay, I'm going to do some question time while those updates are happening. Hey, what's up, Landon? Yeah, Spiderhound uses a faraway rack often. And watch out for the new Spiderhound EP coming March 9th. As well as tomorrow, the Flying EP, the Flying Remix EP comes out tomorrow. I'm very excited for that. If you've seen my live sets, you've probably heard me playing some particularly sick remixes of Flying. They're coming out tomorrow. So I got to go, after this, I'm going to go do all the release stuff for that. But that's very exciting. Yeah, what up, Jess Denver? Very much looking forward to the Denver show. And yes, low-pass filters definitely sound like the 90s, but they also sound cool. Yeah, and James Hahn, Nectar in Seattle is tomorrow. I'm very, very excited about that. Okay, cool. Oh, and yeah, I'm for sure coming back to Hawaii. Last time went really well. I actually just got a update of the video from the New Year's party on Maui. They're releasing a video, but I got along real well with the promoters in Maui, and they're going to be bringing me back, which is exciting and fun. And Jocelyn says, or I guess that's Jocelyn. It's just spelt fancy. Yeah, Jocelyn, I am going to come back to New York pretty soon. My agent, Greg, is in Brooklyn, and I talked to him on the phone today, and he said that there's a New York show in the works, so that's pretty exciting stuff. Jesse, yeah, tech support, the Live 10 update for the APC 40 template. I don't know if I'm going to do a Live template update for the APC 40 template because they have not released any relevant features to DJing, really. Like, there were no DJ, like, it's really funny, like, all the Ableton DJ stuff hasn't really changed that much since they added racks. That was, like, the big deal for the DJ templates. But they haven't really added much that's relevant to my DJ templates since they added racks. So I don't think there will be an update to the template for Live 10. Cool. And yeah, Keenan, I definitely want to come back to Hawaii soon. All right, let's see if my Live 10 will open. Yes, it's opening now. Okay, 10.0.1, brand new version of Live 10. Very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to open up Live 10 here. Oh, it looks so much better than 9, like the new fonts and everything. Okay, and then I'm going to open up go into the weekly download. Let's see where are we, Dropbox, L Gates products, then the weekly download. Let's sort that, there we go. So this is movement. Oh yeah, and apologies for the construction noise in the background. We're building a very fancy studio downstairs. Okay. So this is now if I go here and I search LFO, and I go to the audio, or to the Max for Live, I can see the Max for Live audio effect LFO. And if I bring that on, this is really cool. You see this LFO oscillating here? This LFO can, oh wait, actually you don't see that because it's too far over. There you go, now you see it. So this LFO can be mapped to up to 8 destinations anywhere in the track. They don't even have to be on the same track that you're using. They can be anywhere in the track. So if I hit this map button and I paste it, and then I hit the frequency. Now this is going up and down, and when I play, oh wait, here I gotta change my sound card over to the UAD. There we go. Right, and now you can hear that it's doing the LFO that I want. So you can specify the maximum and minimum. So I want it to just do it in the highs and mids, like right about there. So if I and then you can change the rate. Whoa. Right? So now check it out. Watch what happens to here. If I put this EQ into left-right mode, now I have one on the left, and then I'm going to put a peak on the right here like this. And then I'm going to add a second destination to that one. And then if I put them like this, right? That's a really cool way to add movement. And if I go like this, you could also sync them to your track. So these are even BPM increments. You could change it to a ramp up if I want. So one's going up, one's going down. Right? You could also change it to a random. Whoa. That's a random or a sample and hold. That sounds fucking crazy! You could add some jitter, which adds some chaos to the sound. If I put it on sine wave, you'll hear it better. So it's adding a little bit of that sample and hold effect. Smooth will smooth out the jitteriness. Right, very cool, and you can map these to however many. There's also an envelope effect that you can use to add movement, which is another very cool Max device. So if I go to envelope follower, right, and then I put that here, now I can add an envelope, right, so gain it up. See? And now let's say I can map this to the filter here. Or I could bring the fall, and then here I'll bring this, turn the release time up. Hear it falling, you see it falling? So you can add a rise and falling envelope, and that'll just follow it. So you can add envelope to anything. There's also like this EXT is like a third-party Max device that is a bit more of like a complicated envelope that you can use for step sequencing. I'm not going to cover that here, but that's available as an expansion pack for Ableton. So that one's really cool. And then there's this other one called the Shaper. And the Shaper is a lot like the LFO, but you have these custom shapes, right, where you can like draw in a custom LFO shape, right, kind of like some of the fancy Native Instruments envelopes. So you could have it be like this, and then you can even curve it by holding Alt. You can add curves to your shapes. And then you can make the grid more complicated if you want. So you can have like a, you know, more complicated grid. And then let's say I'll put that on the filter now. Okay. And then let's go. Oh yeah, I gotta turn the keyboard thing on. So you can see this guy is adding movement and this guy's adding movement here. Okay, so these are pretty standard kind of parameters to be modulating, right? Like the filter frequency and the you know, some peak filters. But I'm going to start showing you now some more kind of cool things to be automating, right? So you can go in and let's go to the reverb. Automating reverbs sounds really fucking cool. Okay, so we've got these two automating. Right, so let's get the shaper out again. Max for live, let's get the shaper out. And watch what happens when, oops, that's not the right one. That's a different one. The shaper, let's get the shaper out. And watch what happens when we map the size on the... Right, that's pretty cool. Like that's a very... Why does my dog keep doing that? Why? Oh, okay, good, it went away. All right. So that's a kind of an unusual thing to automate, but check out one of my favorite things to automate is distortion. You get some really wild effects when you automate distortion. So I'm gonna put the saturator on here, and then I'm gonna automate the drive. And then I'm gonna change the maximum minimum. Right? And then I'm gonna make the secondary thing to automate is gonna be the output. And I'm going to have it be... And this will sound a bit different if I change the oscillator to a sine wave. You'll be able to kind of hear some cooler stuff. So I'm going to put the saturator earlier. So here, I'll take that off. So right now we're just, the only thing that we're hearing is the shaper. So you see how it sounds almost like a low pass, but that's not a low pass. What's happening is this sine wave is getting clipped rhythmically. And if you put it into like the sinoid fold. So there's not a low pass because without this, it's just, you know, it's just a sine wave. It's a pure tone. But we're adding harmonics with that. The shaper, and then if I put this the digital all right, here, let's put on the wave. Let's see, let's add this. Right, you can start getting some pretty wild effects by moving those sorts of parameters rather than moving a traditional like filter parameter. So let's do that, and then let's do that. Uh-oh, what's going on? How did I break it? Why is that not making sound? Oh. Yeah. Oh wait, I didn't mean to do bass. Let's do... Oh, it might be, I might be stressing it out a bit. Oh, I think I broke it. Oh, I think I broke it. But adding some of these sorts of modulations can really make a thing sound cool. Here, I think I broke the settings on that saturator. Let's get it slow to saturator again. What happened? What? How did I break that? So that should be just giving me a sine wave. Maybe I broke analog or something? Oh, I was playing too low on the keyboard. That's what it was. Okay. Right, okay, good. Right, and then if you curve it like this. But yeah, so you can get some cool effects by automating the saturator. I think I went a little too much on the saturator there. But yeah, you can get some pretty cool effects with automating the EQs and the saturator. Reverbs sound really good. Delays can sound particularly cool when you automate them. So let's get an LFO on the delay, and I'll just show you some of the effects that you can achieve with an LFO on a delay. So if you turn the delay all the way, the dry wet all the way up, I'm gonna link this, take it off of sync, and now with the feedback all the way down, the dry all the way up, this literally becomes the amount that the sound is delayed, right? So it's like, and you see how it makes that kind of dying cat noise when you move that around? That's because it's jumping. You don't want it to jump. You want it to repitch. And then watch. Right? And then if you map that to that. So now you can get a vibrato effect if you set it to about 9 and then. Here, I'll take this off. So you can get vibrato on anything like that, which is a really, really cool, cool thing to be able to add is like vibrato on anything. And if you listen to my track, Marble Madness, get that out, Marble Madness. If you listen to Marble Madness, the drop has that delay vibrato effect on everything.
If it make you wanna move, then move.
But the whole, everything going through the sidechain gets that vibrato effect, and that's just done by putting an LFO to the time on a delay and just adding a touch of it. And you can, and that's really cool because, like, let's say you have a vocal sample, right?
You know what you want to do with that, right?
3-0 about me.
Yeah, so let's say that we have just this, and you want to add vibrato to a vocal sample. It's hard to do that outside of the context of a sampler. But if I go like this, and then solo, and then loop that. Like, that's crazy. And then let's take an LFO. And I wonder if you can do this. I'm not sure if you can send an LFO to that value. I think you might be able to. Oh, no, you can't. You got to automate it. But I think, let's see if I macro it and then map that to macro 1. Oh, it doesn't let me macro it. Annoying. So yeah, you'd have to automate that directly. Oh, what? Does it not let you automate it? Surely you can put an LFO on that. Oh, it doesn't let you do it. Annoying. Yeah, so you could just macro the depth here. So if you take an LFO and you put the so you can't macro the maximum, but you can macro the depth. So if I do that, and then I make this guy sync and put it on up, then each bar. Yeah, that's how I did it. Craziness. So now you can see that this is modulating the depth of that. So you can see how the depth starts with nothing and then goes up. So now we've got one LFO modulating another LFO. And you could put that to down. Yeah, so that's like pretty much Marble Madness is all about that effect. If you listen to that track, there's so much of that, like LFOs, automating LFOs, creating vibrato effects. So other things that you can do to add movement that I think I'd probably be remiss if I didn't mention are things like phasers. Phasers are really good for adding movement. So I'm just going to get the good old Ableton phaser and put it on this guy. And phasers, what they're basically doing is kind of like a chorus effect where it's taking multiple copies of the sound and kind of rubbing them in and out of phase with each other. So you get... And you get that classic sort of mouthy effect. Right, that can be a really cool effect. You just got to be tasteful with it, usually with a wet dry. Right, that can give a lot of movement. So a phaser, a flanger is another kind of classic one. And this is flangers, phasers, and chorus are all kind of variations of the same thing. And these ones have the envelope and LFO built into them. But basically the point of this lesson is showing you that you can add the envelope and the LFO to anything using those Max devices. They're really, really, really useful, and they're now like built into Ableton. So they're pretty fun and pretty easy to do. So yeah, so whether you're doing these kind of like nice, simple macro automations with things like the faraway rack or a low pass filter, you know, those sorts of simple automations can so they can be really kind of, they just really go a long way towards giving your track movement. And if you want to make a really repetitive track where you have that kind of hypnotic looping effect, think about adding some kind of long, slow modulations to your patches and stuff that are really going to make the track sound like it's moving and coming alive. And if you listen to like really good techno, a lot of really good techno, like, yeah, it's simple and it's repetitive, but if you actually listen carefully to it, nothing really is exactly repeating. You know, things are always like a little bit different, you know, a little bit moving and a little bit kind of melting and shit. So, you know, think about adding some of these sorts of effects to your sound design and to your track to really kind of like just make it, you know, keep that feeling like it's always got momentum, it's always going somewhere, it's always moving and developing and growing along the way, and it'll just make your sounds a lot less static and a lot less boring. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple questions, and then I'm going to go. I got to get the Flying record release ready for launch, but yeah, I'll go check and see if we got any questions here. No, this program isn't called Movement. This is Ableton. I'm just showing ways of adding movement to your sounds inside of Ableton. The Shaper and the LFO are available in Live 9 as well as Live 10, and they are Max devices. If you go to Max for Live, actually that's a fucking great question. You go to Max for Live, and there's all these different things in here that you can get. You can also go to the packs, and then in Live 10 you can add packs directly from this packs area, but here, I'll make a new window and I'll just show you. If you have Live 9, you go to ableton.com and then packs. Packs, yeah, ableton.com/en/packs. But just search ableton.com and then packs. And people make all these really cool packs that you can use to add, you know, different sounds to your Ableton. You can download them here and install them. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them are free, but hit the free section because there's a ton of free ones. These Max Pitch and Time machines are really fucking cool. The Mad Zach 64 Pad Lab has some really cool stuff in it, but a lot of these packs are free. Many of them are very, very cool. And can be used to expand the capabilities of Ableton. You can also go to maxforlive.com, and this is a place where users make Max for Live devices and add them. And if you go to the device library, you can look through here and then search, and then you can say look for free. You know, if you go to any and then just look for free and then search, this will get you all of the different free live devices, and like some of the shit gets so cool. You could definitely go way down the rabbit hole with these Max for Live devices. I've certainly lost many a studio day to just nerding out on some cool concept thing that I didn't actually use. But they're really, really, really cool. There's so many different Max for Live devices. You can get emulations of different synthesizers. You can get controllers. Like I have one that I use to control my Moog Little Fatty when I'm working. And then there's just like, yeah, there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of these devices that do all different kinds of things, like controlling lights, animating things. There's even Abletinder, where you can meet other Ableton users, and it's a Max device made by Tom Cosm. There's the thing where you can curve your macro input-output, so you can make it so like the instead of having just a straight linear minimum to maximum value thing, you can have like a curve where it's like it's at 0 at 0, at max at 50, and then back down to 0 at 100. So you can have a curve that goes wow, wow. You know, that's really cool. But yeah, there's lots and lots of different devices here. But definitely check out Max for Live. There's Dopplers. There's lots of stuff. Yeah, this is like it's like it's kind of like the. Yeah, I haven't used it, but I would guess that it's different LFOs that you can pan the spectrums, panning is definitely really important. But yeah, you can do all that stuff. Oh, Lexi, if you're coming to Ohio and you want to meet up, hit me up, mgmt@ailgates.com. I'll put you on the guest list, and I'm not sure if my flight gets in time for dinner, but usually when my flight lands, I'll like hit everybody up in the dojo who's in that town and we'll go for dinner. But yeah, definitely green room and hang out, Lexi. So yeah, hit me up, mgmt@ailgates.com. We'll have a Producer Dojo meetup. There's also Producer Dojo Seattle meetup if you're in Seattle. But yeah, so get Max for Live, get Ableton packs, and get Max for Live, and yeah, you can use a lot of these different A lot of these different Max devices. I love the buffer shuffler I use a lot. The convolution reverb I use a lot. The envelope I use a lot. I have this one. There's this modulators pack that we didn't get into, but there's a pack called modulators that is by K Devices, I believe. Where is it? Yeah, modulators by K Devices, and these are kind of better versions of the LFO and the envelope follower and stuff. I think it's like $30. It was totally worth it if you ask me. But yeah, so there's lots of those different devices. Cool. Oh, Dave, yeah, the mixtape is happening. I just had to get it out of the way of the Flying record release, which is tomorrow. So it's probably going to be Flying tomorrow. Well, Flying is definitely coming out tomorrow. And then a week later, I'm going to do the Night at the Movies mixtape. And then March 9th is Spiderhound's release. So yeah, lots of new stuff coming out on the dojo. Cool. Oh, cool. That's right on, Keenan. Yeah, I can't wait to come see you in Hawaii again. Cool. All right. I think that's it for questions. I'll see if there's any on YouTube. Okay, here, let's see if there's any on YouTube. Yeah. All right, cool. Oh, wait, here, let's see if there's any questions on YouTube here, Rex. Yeah, Austin, you can definitely make things worse when you're adding modulate or when you're adding audio effects. Every time you process, you gain stuff, but you also lose stuff. Ring modulation is essentially amplitude modulation, and you can do a lot with amplitude modulation. I don't find myself using ring modulation a ton in my productions. Oh, damn straight. When you're, yeah, you wouldn't really automate the receive parameter in a drum rack. You wouldn't really automate that. Cool. All right, cool. I think that's it for this weekly download. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have fun adding movement to your sounds and making them more interesting. I'm out. I got to go prep the Flying record release because it's coming out tomorrow. Woohoo! All right. Lots of love, everybody. Peace.